for what it could look like to show up. And, we've already been picking on Steve Peterson here this afternoon. So
have we been picking on Steve?
Well,
I didn't think.
We're not picking on, we're just saying, we're saying nice things about him,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're not picking on him, but, we keep using him as an example. And I'll use him as an example here, too.
Well, Steve's not even in the state. I hate that.
I know. We're saying all this good stuff. He's probably not even going to hear us this afternoon. But I look at ways that Steve shows up. I look at how he showed up in your life when you had COVID.
Oh, just an unbelievable demonstration of Christianity at work. It changed my view of him. We were always friendly. He was when I got remarried, he was my best man in the Presbyterian Church.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how very ill I still was.
Yeah.
And he came into my house, and I don't blame him or any of his family who said, "Are you sure that's the right thing to do? The guy's got COVID. He's been sick." But he came every Monday through Friday, and sometimes on the weekends. Always made me breakfast. Nothing in it for him.
Yeah.
Nothing. And I was so impressed. And I was impressed with Supervisor Nikki Conrad as well. I've said this before.
Yeah, and I think that's the essence of showing up. I mean, especially when there's taking risk like that, because you're right. I mean, if we've heard anything in the last few years with COVID, it's social distancing and, trying to stop the spread and whatever else. And here's an example of a Christian showing up and even incurring a risk in doing so.
Absolutely.
Or another concrete example comes to my mind, and this is a story you told me before, that when your wife was first hearing of cancer, and when you guys were in the hospital, Dave Feltman showed up.
Yes, he did.
Whether you said you wanted him there or not, I mean, he was just there for you.
He just came. He just got in the car and came. That's what he did.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was coming. I was grateful that he did come, but he came more than once too.
And so those are concrete examples of showing up. And I think we can maybe sometimes complicate it when we think of the hardest or the worst case scenarios of like, well, suppose my neighbor's a jerk and I don't like him, and do I really need to show up to him? And yes, we could talk about that, but let's start even with the people who are not jerks, because I think the challenge is that even when we are well-intentioned, even with the people who we feel good about, we're often so busy and distracted that we don't show up maybe in the ways we ought.
Right.
And I think especially about our neighbors and our neighborhoods. Something we're going to do this Sunday morning, so I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag here. We've done this before at our church, but we're going to invite people they're going to have a pencil and a sheet of paper, and to draw just a little quick map of their house and their neighbors. So if, say, you live in a part of town where the streets are in kind of a grid, can you identify the houses to your left, to your right, and across the street and behind you? Do you know who actually lives in those homes? And I think it's pretty astounding how few of our neighbors we actually know.
Oh, that's absolutely true. Sometimes my neighbors don't want to know me. And I've accepted that. I mean, I don't think it's a personal rebuke.
Sure.
But that's just the way neighborhoods are anymore.
Yeah.
Every now and then I'll see a man outside who I know is my neighbor, and we'll talk for a minute or two.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. I mean, his wife, if I see her and wave, she runs right in the house.
Yeah. Well, and I mean,
like, who's this guy?
And just think about how different that is than a generation or two ago, when we seemed to. I mean, I think when I was a kid, we knew our neighbors, and we also knew the neighbors that I'm sure my brothers and I greatly annoyed, as we'd get dirt bikes and start them and, ride them up and down the street, and they'd be loud. And
you lived in a much more heavily populated area.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always some crazy, you came from California, there's always some weirdo story coming out of California.
Yeah.
There really is some cult or some strange people
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And California and their culture seem to kind of encourage that, and that's fine. The freedom aspect and all of that sort of thing, but it can get a little weird.
Yeah. But I mean, I'll never forget, there was a time when I was riding my bike with one of my neighbor friends who lived a couple houses down, and I was going really fast down the hill and biffed on my bike and, hit my head open like, many kids do. And
Right.
especially this is before kids really wore helmets on bikes. And so, I'm kind of dragging myself up the street, bleeding along the way. And in the neighbor, my neighbor friend who was going to ride bikes with went and got his mom. And his mom, she just helped me get into the house, ran right in the house, didn't ring the doorbell. And there was just a comfort because there was a familiarity. She knew our family knew her, and she helped me out. And I look around at our neighborhoods, and so often that's just not the case today. And I think there's something lost with that.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about doesn't have to always be invasive, awkward kinds of things, but just thinking about some small steps to let our neighbors know that, one, we're not creepy, we're not out to stalk them or something, but two, that maybe we care about our neighbors, and to think through this commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. And instead of thinking about, neighbors all over the world, I mean, that's all good and fine, but what if we just took it literally, like our neighbors, the people who actually lived close to us?
Mm-hmm.
What would it look like if we loved our neighbors? So that's an invitation for us this week to think about just some small, tiny action steps we can take. So maybe it's just sending an encouraging note and dropping it in the mailbox of your neighbors and just saying, something nice.
Won't they call the police if I do that?
Well,
my neighbor's dropping little notes in my mailbox, wishing me well.
Yeah, well,
I don't know this guy.
Well, okay, put a stamp on it and put it actually in the mail. That way you're not breaking the law as you do it. And I recognize this is a little hard as we're talking here in the dead of winter still. It's not like you can invite a neighbor over for a grill in your backyard when it's 0 degrees outside.
No.
But we were pretty astounded. Our neighbors who live right across the street from us, they just moved into our neighborhood within the last 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got some kids who are similar in age to our kids. And it took a lot of guts, but leading up to Christmas, they invited probably half our neighborhood, kind of all of the homes near to them, invited them over to their house just for like sort of a cookie exchange. And I thought to myself, wow, why are they, the new people in the neighborhood, why are they inviting us in? How come we haven't invited them to make them feel welcome?
Great question, really.
How come we've dropped ball and not, had them into our homes yet?
Mm-hmm.
And so they invited us in, and we came, and we didn't know all of the people there, but we got to know them, and it was wonderful. And we thought, my goodness, we should do this more often. And it was as simple as inviting people to bring a plate of cookies and just come for 10 minutes if you've got time, or stay for the whole 2 hours, whatever you feel comfortable doing. And, little things like that can go a long way in really growing the relationships of the people who live closest to us.
Mm-hmm.
And,
that's a great scenario there. It really is. And it strikes really at the heart of what we're talking about. It just didn't occur to you and Sarah. I mean, it wouldn't occur to me either, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And somebody else had to make the move. So a new person in town.
Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it happens because of some sort of tragedy, and we've sort of missed the normal opportunity. And it's only when maybe someone dies, or when you see an emergency vehicle out front that then you realize, oh my goodness, there's something happening here, and you maybe want to go over and help or something. And then we think, why did we wait until there's an ambulance out front to get to know the name of our neighbor? By then it's often too late to really be there and to be a resource to one another.
Yeah.
So often it can start with just a simple act like a cookie exchange, or maybe as the weather is warmer, just instead of having your grill in the backyard, maybe put it in the front yard, and invite people over to grill a steak or a burger or something. And it doesn't have to be much of anything. Then they don't even have to go in your house. You don't even have to clean your house for people at that point.
Yeah. Well, I've told stories over the many years about why I stayed in Fort Dodge. I came here from Algona, right up the road.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to go to Iowa Central for a couple of years, and then I was going to go down to Iowa State and I guess conquer the world or whatever it is. And I was young. But anyway, my wife and I really, decided to stay because of the way we were treated by the people in Fort Dodge. Now, Fort Dodge at the time kind of had a rough and tumble image, you know, and we thought, well, maybe we won't be received as anything but outsiders here.
Yeah.
Exactly the opposite happened. I don't know what your experience was when you came to town much later, somebody of your generation, but I was always impressed that the folks in Fort Dodge would just drop everything. And it happened when I had COVID as well. They would just drop everything and bring it over. Matter of fact, you brought me a double cheeseburger, as I recall.
Yeah.
Now that we're talking.
Yeah, and that was the same for us too. You know, we've now lived in two neighborhoods, and interestingly, in both of them, we've lived basically on the same street as the Petersons. So we just keep following them everywhere they go. But and we've received a similar welcome. And I think there's something really cool that's different about this community than where I lived in California. You know, back in California, everyone had a privacy fence. And so you really didn't see your neighbors ever. But in the first neighborhood we lived in over by Cooper, we had a backyard fence. It was a small chain link fence, so you could see into your neighbors' backyards too. And even that alone helped us to get to know neighbors a little bit more easily. Now in our new neighborhood, there are really no fences at all. So the kids, especially, they kind of roam from yard to yard, and
that's all right.
Yeah, it's great, and they make friends that way. And then often you get to know the parents of your kids as friends, and so that brings families together as well. But this whole idea of loving and showing up to our neighbors really has come to me through reading a book a number of years ago called The Art of Neighboring. And the premise of that is it's written by these pastors out of Denver. They met with I think the mayor of Denver at one point, and they said something to the effect of, "Hey, we're some church leaders, and we'd love to know what could we be doing with our churches to make Denver a better community."
Right.
And the mayor came back and said, if you could teach people how to be good neighbors, that would have the most profound impact in our community that we can think of that you can do.
Yeah.
And there was some statistics or research they had, behind that, but they were not expecting that. They were thinking they were going to be invited to support some, homeless shelter or food pantry or something. But the mayor of Denver said, we need people to be better neighbors for one another. And it kind of launched this whole way of thinking for these pastors to encourage Christians to actually show up right there in their local communities.
You should get another book on Amazon. Back in the 80s, there was a book that called Bowling Alone. Bowling Alone, in the 50s and 60s, when I was a kid, there were bowling leagues everywhere.
Yeah.
And every town had a bowling alley, and Fort Dodge had 3, maybe 4 at the time. And this time of year, there was league play all the time. And it was a big deal to go be in a bowling league and be on a team. And that was a big night out. I remember the bars and restaurants were flooded after league night, As we got into the 1980s, all that went away. All that seemed to go away. I know we still have bowling leagues.
Yeah.
And here in Fort Dodge, we're down to one bowling alley.
I know.
So the whole point of it is that there were outside forces driving us apart and into our homes. Television was a big one. Television was a big one, but more the sense I want to get home and get into my recliner. I don't want to go out and be friends.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is hilarious how much I never thought I would do this as a parent, but I've become that dad where it'll be a Saturday and say it's October or something. It'll be one of those rare, nice warm Saturdays. Yeah. And I've had to tell my kids, I don't care what you do outside, but you're not playing inside today. You don't know how many nice Saturdays you're going to have left this year. So I don't want to see you for 2 hours. Go, get yourself into trouble, do whatever, but you're playing outside. Because all they want to do is just play, and they want to sit around inside. And I mean, when we have a whole society who does that, we miss one another.
By the way, the full title of the book is Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of American Community.
I'm going to have to look that up.
And that, I thought it came out in the late 80s. I'm wildly wrong. The paperback edition, anyway, came out in 2003. one.
Hmm.
But again, a great book, and I got a used one for, I don't know, $2 not
Yeah.
long ago, just so I could reread it.
Yeah.
And, it was well worth the effort. You know,
Mhm.
I still don't know what to do about it, but maybe I should reread it.
Well, I think the starting point, without getting overwhelmed at these large systemic changes in our society,
Mhm.
start with the local, start with the people who live right on your street.
Mhm.
What's one tangible thing I can do that'll take me 5 minutes, but would be a nice, thoughtful gesture to the people living closest to me?
We talked about Steve Peterson. What a swath he cuts through the community. I mean, he's everywhere. He's got
Yeah.
friends in this little nook and over here, more friends over here. He's getting to be one of the most well-known guys
Yeah.
in the whole town.
And that's because he continues to show up in
He
those
does.
everyday, ordinary ways.
Well, I hope he's not listening on StreamYard down there. He's getting way too many compliments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, our guest is Pastor Austin Hill of the First Presbyterian Church here in Fort Dodge. We'll be back.
100 KVFD, bang.
It's 3:31, and now the news.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
I'm going to look that book up.
Yeah, I just did. Oh, heck.
For KVFD News, I'm Brooke Bickford. Fort Dodge Police responded to a call on shots fired last night. A press release from Fort Dodge Police Captain Ryan Gruenberg states that officers first heard shots at a little after 11:30 p.m.
Yeah, let's
while
read
they
that
were
one
on
together,
call in the
maybe.
10 block
Yeah.
of North
If it ever
12th
stops being
Street.
cold, I'll come to Bible at breakfast.
There you go.
I haven't gone anywhere for a month.
Well, yeah, when it's that, especially when it's early in the morning. home that has dramatically individualized families or people, and on and talks about computers or social media or whatever, something like that, that I'm sure has only greatly expanded that individualism. And so I'm pretty fascinated. So in the break, I actually just ordered a copy. Now,
Did you?
we also noticed it's 592 pages long. So,
So we may have to take the best part.
yeah, so it might be a while before we make our way through this whole thing. But I was fascinated nonetheless. And I maybe this means I'm just getting old. But
Yeah, that's it.
I just continue to marvel at the pace of change, even in my lifetime. Just over the last weekend, my mom sent our family a text message with a picture. And my old Sunday school teacher, when I was in elementary school, who, by the way, looked ancient when I was in Sunday school, just passed away. And I'm thinking to myself, I was in elementary school and Sunday school, 30 years ago, and this woman looked, prehistoric at that time. And she probably was only 60, and to a 6 or 7 year old that looked ancient. But it made me reflect on the memories that I have from Sunday school. And I don't have a whole lot of big aha moments. Like I remember when I learned this or that about the Bible or about my faith, but somehow over the week after week participating and showing up, I learned the fundamentals of the faith. I learned what it meant to be a Christian. I learned what it meant to participate in a church. And I look at even just that setup where many churches, ours included, we don't really even have a regular Sunday school on Sunday mornings anymore because there's just not enough participation for that. And that change has happened just in my lifetime. And you can just go down the list of all of these different areas of engagement and involvement. And it's just staggering how much change has happened in the last 30 to 50 years.
Even the conversation itself. Here I am while you're talking. I'm on the phone.
Pulling up information or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I am. That's my job, and I do
Sure.
it all the time. And when Devin Mulholland comes here tomorrow, or Randy Coleman, either one,
Yeah.
sometime we'll have some sports trivia thing
Mhm.
that we're trying to figure out, and we'll immediately consult our phones.
Yeah.
But that's, you see people in restaurants, a
Yeah.
couple out for dinner, and they're into their phones. They're not talking to each other, not looking at each other. They're into their phone.
Well,
I don't
and,
have
yeah. And so to go further with that, so I was listening to a recent podcast from a church leadership guru kind of guy. And well, one, I'm listening to a podcast that already demonstrates some of the changes. But he's
Well, podcast is okay. I think it's. I think podcasts are the way they're growing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like TV and everything else, where it's the same type of medium, but it's now on demand.
Yeah, it is, and it covers a lot of times specific arguments or specific areas. My son uses it all the time.
Yeah.
He's a big history buff.
Yeah, it's kind of more.
He was telling me about the Crusades the other day.
Yeah, and you're thinking,
Where did you get this information?
And I'm sure
A
there's a whole podcast all
Yeah,
about it.
right.
Yeah, exactly. And similar with TV, with streaming. I mean, when we stay at a hotel, my kids turn on a TV that has actual cable. They don't even understand what it is to watch a TV show with commercials because they've never seen that before. They think they're previews. They don't even know what to call it. And all of these changes, though. So I was listening to this podcast, and this church leadership guru guy was interviewing a couple pastors, one of whom is a pastor of a virtual reality church.
Really?
So, there's things like...
Where is the church at? I mean, where is the virtual reality center?
no
one seems to know. Huh?
Yeah. And so, with
Wow.
the Facebook's Oculus that they have, their headset, their VR headset, and a few of these other types out there. So this guy started, it's a virtual reality church. And he talks about the incredible opportunities in VR church, apparently. And one of the things that he says, in 20 years of in-person church ministry that he did, almost never would an atheist just come to a church service and openly talk about their non-faith to him, on a Sunday morning or anything like that. But the first Sunday, I believe, that they had one of these VR church services in some forum or something,
Mhm.
someone who had no faith in God whatsoever showed up to it and just had an authentic, genuine conversation about belief and unbelief. And this pastor has gone on to say that there's something about the anonymity of being in VR, where you have an avatar as opposed to in real life, you know,
Right.
kind of next to a person, that allows for people to be open and honest about themselves in ways that they never would
Certainly
in
not.
person.
Or they can be anybody they want to be.
I know. I mean, that's the scary part. Now, what this pastor is saying is that generally most of the people tend to be pretty close to their real selves as they do this online. Now, the cynic in me is saying, well, how do you even know that? I mean, how do you know if the person is actually the age and gender that they claim to be or anything like that? But essentially, the argument behind this was we're to take the gospel to all ends of the earth, you know, wherever we are sent.
Mhm.
And that if people are online, then that should be online too. And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't get this at all. You know, this just does not feel real to me. It doesn't sound like something that's viable. And yet, as more and more things move online, as change continues to accelerate, I wonder, will there be more and more opportunities like this for church online, which then goes back to this whole idea of neighborliness and of loving our neighbors. What does it look like to have a neighbor when you're online? I mean, who are your neighbors then? Who are the people you're with? And how do we authentically engage and have church and serve one another if we're a bunch of avatars?
Yeah. You know, gosh, it just hit me that I actually remember when the big thing was that pastors had gone on radio.
Yeah.
And what a great opportunity. And they used to talk on the radio about what a great opportunity this was
Mhm.
to spread their message.
Well, and think about it, you know, because before you could only communicate, spread the message to the people who were in the room with you.
In the room, correct.
And now the gospel can go all over the world.
And then, of course, it was the Sunday morning religious shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I even liked a couple of them. I can't remember what they were. Some of them were geared at children. I mean, it was, as the technology went along, faith went along with it. Sometimes it's been perverted, of course. We all remember Jim Baker and
Sure.
Jimmy Swaggart and those people. But Dr. Robert Schuller, I used to watch him every now and then. He was the prosperity gospel, and he was always ebullient and up. And,
Yeah.
he started in a drive-in theater in California somewhere, in the Los Angeles area.
Mm-hmm.
I don't follow too many of them anymore.
Well, and a lot of them, I mean, some have crashed and burned.
Yes.
Others have passed away, or the churches have kind of faded. The Crystal Cathedral is now owned by the Catholic Church, I believe.
Schuller's Crystal Cathedral is owned by the Catholic Church.
Yeah, because the church, I mean, I forget if Schuller is still alive or not. I think
I don't
he died.
believe Pastor Schuller is still alive.
I think when he died, and kind of the ministry sort of transitioned or something like that. But
well, some pastors hang on past their prime just to keep the ministry going for family or friends.
Yeah.
And the Swaggart ministries, of course, have taken another big hit because Jimmy Jr. has been, well, in the pulpit doing things he shouldn't be doing.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, and I look at some of these changes, and I think there's always going to have to be a real in-person connection.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time, we can't deny that lives are changed in these mass media kinds of forums. I mean, I'm sure as you consider your career, your life has been impacted by remote kinds of communications and the people you interact with. And so in a very real way, even the people who are listening to us right now, I mean, we are impacting their lives for better or for worse. And there is that sense that even though, I mean, I don't know who's listening to us right now, and I'm not in the room with them, but in another sense, we are in the room with them. And so it's kind of this odd both and where we are able to transcend space through technology and whatnot, but we also know that there has to be the human physical connection in our everyday lives with the people who are close to us when we're living out our faith. Our faith is not simply just a collection of ideas, you know, that can be considered on air or in a vacuum or something. It needs to be lived out in our community.
I'm going to take the conversation just in a little. I've always wanted to ask a pastor this, and despite all the pastors and priests I've had on over.
All right, I'm going to buckle my seatbelt here.
No, it's not that big a deal. But have you felt pressure as a pastor to uphold a perfect standard? You know, I mentioned this with Jimmy Swagger Jr.
Sure.
Because he was a man of God and
Mhm.
a passionate man of God, and so was his wife. And then we looked behind the curtain, and wow, he wasn't all. I mean,
Yeah.
his personal life
Mhm.
and his father's personal life
Yeah.
weren't probably the best example of Christian
Mhm.
behavior. So, if you and your wife, who's also a pastor, have you felt you had to carry a certain image for?
Yeah, I think certainly. And I don't know if that ever comes from any individual. I mean, yes, there have been times people have made comments about the kinds of clothes that I wear, and why you're
What,
a pastor.
socks? I think your
well,
socks are cool.
I know, no, but you're a pastor and you're wearing jeans, those kinds of things. I think that's just a California versus the Midwest. In the Midwest, you get more farmers, and farmers think, jeans are for the farm; they're not for the sanctuary.
That's right. And the only time a farmer would put on a tie was Sunday morning.
Exactly. Whereas for me, all those hipster pastors growing up in California, they've been wearing jeans for 40 years out there. So, that's just a little aside. But so, I'll hear individual comments like that, but I think there's a lot of self-imposed pressure to comport oneself in a manner that seems worthy of the gospel or something. There's a funny story of my grandpa when he was a pastor, and this was going back 50 some odd years, 60 years ago now, where he would have the black shirt and the clerical collar, and he was pregnant with my mom. So this is a while ago now, and he wasn't pregnant, his wife, my grandma was.
I was trying to catch up with that.
Yeah. So my grandma was pregnant with my mom, and so he was driving in the car one day, and with my pregnant grandma in the seat next to him, and a police officer pulled him over for speeding or something like that. And the police officer sees my grandfather in all black with the clerical collar, looking just like a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
And then sees this pregnant woman in the car next to him. And
Thought something was going on, did he?
So the police officer isn't really sure what to do with that, and kind of looks back and forth at them, and really all he can muster is he says something to the effect of, "Now you be careful, Father," and sends him on his way.
Well, that's probably good advice for any of us. You be
Exactly.
careful now.
So people watch, and yes, I think there is a sense of pressure in the way one speaks. Or take alcohol, for example. I mean, I'm not a huge drinker.
The priest never had any problem. The old Irish priest that I had, oh no, they'd belly up to the bar when it hits bad. I mean, my dad got really mad one time when my grandfather died.
Uh-huh.
And the priest showed up to say the rosary, but he'd obviously been drinking. And Dad and his brother and a couple others were incensed.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Most of the Catholic priests will have a drink with you.
Well, yeah, and when COVID first was starting, and we're doing all these Zoom meetings, and I was at home, and it'd be 4 p.m, and I'm thinking, I've been trying to cut back on soda. A nice Corona Light right now, it'd be pretty nice. It's not going to hinder my working or anything. No. But so here I am. I've got to go on a Zoom call. So you put that beer in a in a koozie or whatever they call it, and then you can have that beer. But things like that where you have to kind of maintain an image. I
don't think having a beer or a drink is a big deal. I never saw when my grandfather died. I didn't recognize the signs on the priest.
Yeah.
The adults did notice that he'd obviously been drinking, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I've never seen a drunken priest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I never have. I mean, it seems normal for a grown man, and that's what a priest or a minister is, or a rabbi. Hey, you want a drink? Yes, I would. I'll have a bourbon on the rocks.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't. Is there supposed to be sin in that, or?
Well, sometimes you have teetotalers.
Some in the early 20s, the early part of the 20th century, there were efforts led by some churches to pass an amendment banning the consumption of liquor.
Yeah. Well,
Wildly unpopular and wildly unsuccessful.
well, yeah. It reminds me of some good Three Stooges episodes that, came as a result of that.
You watch the Stooges?
Oh yeah, we
God.
grew up watching them. They're great. But we've got Northwest Iowa, and things are a little bit more conservative out there.
They really
too.
are.
So
Orange City up there, where Northwestern University is very conservative. Really great people.
yeah,
All some of the nicest Dutch people you'll ever see, shining, smiling faces, all that. But boy, are they conservative.
so yeah, I think sometimes the challenge is you feel like you've got standards kind of on all sides, and then trying to figure out which standards does one try to exhibit or exemplify. But certainly with the way you speak or with the way you dress, we had Ann and Jim Meyer over for dinner once at our house,
Good choice.
and they're wonderful, and they were gracious about this.
People,
but I won't go into all the details. But our kids said something about some kind of potty humor or something that was completely embarrassing about Sarah and myself, and said it right there at the dinner table. And of course, again, they're gracious, but there's those kinds of moments where you're just thinking,
I'm
oh,
at the
my
pastor's
goodness.
house and his kids talking like this.
Yeah, talking about pee and poo and whatever else. And, yeah, but I think it's probably endearing to most people. However, most of that pressure, I would say, is probably self-imposed.
I think that's probably the truth. I mean, if we saw you down at the lunch counter at the Top Hat Lounge, I might say, Pastor, should you be here?
Evangelism, right?
Well, I don't. Some might call it that, but certain narrow-minded people like me, even though I'd probably be sitting there as well, would probably say, "Look, years ago in the radio business, I was working for a radio station up north. There was a really pretty young girl who was an intern for a summer, who went to Northwestern, and she was very conservative, young, very, very pleasant young girl, and dressed immaculately, the whole thing. Well, some of my fellow disc jockeys were crude. I mean, I didn't take part of this, but they started telling her jokes that were pretty sexually explicit.
Yeah.
And the poor thing went in the bathroom and threw up.
Oh, man. Wow.
Because these, I almost threw up.
Yeah.
They were really gross jokes.
Yeah.
And I think her time as an intern was cut short, which is pretty.
Yeah.
And I think everybody felt bad about that, including the clowns that were telling her these dumb jokes. She was trying to fit in, and they responded that way. But I guess you got to live and learn sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes back to this whole idea of local community and relationships. And for better or for worse, when we're in these local relationships, the way we live actually matters. It's not just about abstract ideas, but they're actually lived out in our day-to-day lives. And people notice then if we're saying a whole bunch of things, and if it doesn't actually follow through with the way we live our lives, it doesn't really actually have significance.
Yeah, a church home is a good thing to have, I think.
It can be a challenge for everyone at times, but I think it's in that challenge that we grow.
Yes, it is. I mean, really, I think the guys who were telling these horrible jokes to this nice young woman, first of all, were today, they'd be fired.
Yeah.
But they did feel bad afterwards because she was such a pleasant young woman that they had been so crude, and they were, this was back in the days when we thought we were all Howard Stern or something. And Stern, by the way, is still alive. Alive and on the air.
Yeah. Huh.
But anyway, they genuinely felt ashamed of themselves, as they should have.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, really, and I'm sure sometimes that's a hard way to learn, but frankly, Pastor, that's the only way I've ever really been able to learn is the hard way. Really bang your head against the wall, or
I'll say I wish I had done that differently. Never going to do that again.
Or I wish I would have never done that.
Yeah.
Something like that. Well, let's work. This is a good theme because as I said when we started, and maybe you said it, I don't know. This strikes at the heart of Christianity.
Yeah.
If we can draw people to Christianity or to a church, it will have to be by our example. We can't arrest them.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe the Democrats won't arrest people, march them somewhere. I don't know. But anyway, Pastor Austin Hill of the First Presbyterian Church has been our guest. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Cold day today. It's 3 degrees above zero, wind chill factor temperature 10 to 15 below. What difference does it make, really? it gets that cold. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and this is AM 1400 KBFD.
All right.
You got your cool shades on and the whole thing.
Yeah, so 2 weeks. So I'll be
Straight
grading
talk
those
on Life
exams
and Money.
next
This
week.
is the Dave Ramsey Show on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
How'd you get Dave Ramsey?
He's on at 5 o'clock, or right after
The
news.
president's plan
That's
to
cool.
crime.
Yeah.
Police Brady,
All right,
Fox
see ya.
News.
Thank
Visiting
you.
a city still mourning 2 police officers. President Biden says the federal government will do more to help fight gun violence, though the plan is a team effort to work more closely with police and communities. 6 New York City cops have been shot so far this year.
So I brought Meredith with me.
All right.
Hi.
She's got a whole booklet of stuff.
Oh
she wants to
man,
talk
I got
about.
so much
You
stuff.
you think it'd be all right if I kept showing up breakfast or everything?
Yeah. It's a nice group.
Yeah, they're good. You know, I know a few of the guys.
I even brought you goodies, by the way.
You brought me
The
county
president is
goodies?
visiting NYPD
Well, kinda.
You can gamble enough right here in Fort Dodge. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you can play cards.
Maybe you have a better time doing it. I
I
was
just
never.
soon lose my money to my friends.
Because hopefully you'll get it back.
Yeah, because I got a chance to get it back next week.
Or they'll buy you a beer.
Must be getting old. Here we go, kids.
I've been using Get Upside.
Meredith is ready.
All right.
Pays you cash back for every gallon of gas.
You been
you buy.
saying, Keith, you just
No, she can start. She's got a lot of stuff to get to, and I got some stuff at the end if I have to.
Yes, I get real cash back
I really don't
every
care if I
time
say
I buy
anything.
gas. Does it actually add up to anything? I'll make
Unless
$200 to
Meredith gets caught on
$300 this
something,
year.
then we'll.
Wow, that's serious
Jump
extra
in.
cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GEAR for 25 cents a gallon or more cash back on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, to PayPal, or an e-gift card from Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code GEAR to earn 25 cents a gallon or more on your first tank. That's code GEAR.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
That's right. I'm the Doctor of Truth. Joining me now is the Supervisor of Truth, Keith Dinklaw. Hi, Keith.
What's going on, Mike?
Well, just another day in paradise, ladies and gentlemen. I finally got one of the supervisors on the air. I thought they were shunning me for a while.
Well, I was, but you finally shunned me into coming back.
And you have brought a guest, Keith.
Absolutely. Everybody gets tired of listening to my old news, so I brought Meredith from Public Health.
Well, everybody gets tired of listening to me, too.
I know,
So Meredith
yeah.
from Public Health, how are you?
I'm doing great. thank
What's
you.
your last name?
Meredith Michelson.
Meredith Michelson, just so we don't think your last name is Public Health.
Public Health. There you go.
we don't want that. And boy, I'm sure there's something going on with public health with all the noise about COVID and everything and on and on and on. Is that what you're prepared to talk about, or?
I am. I can talk about COVID. I can talk about all of our different programs that we have. I have some updates from some different programs that people gave me. So I can go ahead and get started if you want.
So when are you going to declare Webster County a mask-free zone?
We will let you guys know.
We're gonna,
You'll be the first to
We
know.
will post it all over.
as far as COVID goes, whatever we got to do. So tell us whatever we got to do.
Well, thanks. The Webster County Health Department, we still are continuing to do courtesy contacts for Webster County residents who test positive. We go ahead and call them, check in on them, answer any questions, or connect them with any resources that they might have. And we are continuing doing vaccinations for COVID and the flu. We're offering weekly vaccinations by appointment for 12-year-olds and older every Wednesday and Friday by appointment. They can just call our health department office, and we are offering all 3 vaccines: the Moderna, the Pfizer, and the Johnson & Johnson.
Okay.
And if anybody knows,
Do you guys recommend either of the or any of those 3 particularly? I always like to get the Moderna. That's what I started with. I mean, does it make a difference, Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson?
it's a personal choice. If you had Moderna, for your first or second doses, and then you decided to get your booster, you can choose a different one. We would just have to have you stay and wait so we can monitor you because you switched vaccines.
Well, I got my 3rd dose. I think we're right around when the fall started. I went out to Smithway Trucking. You guys, everybody lined up out there, and I just stuck my arm out the window, and they gave me a shot, which was very convenient. But is that shot good for how long then? I mean, I've had all 3. My last one again was probably in fall. It was getting cold.
Mhm.
So how long does that last then? Or
When we get more guidance from the CDC, we certainly will let people know. We have, like the first 2 is what they thought at the beginning, and then they did say you could qualify for their boost dose. And so as we know more information, we'll certainly put that out on our Facebook page and in the newspaper and radio and everything else.
Sure, great, okay. Well,
Life changes and life moves on. And
As we
every
learn
day it's a
more.
different story.
yeah. Well,
That's
again,
good.
when it comes to COVID, whatever we got to do.
Yep, whatever we got.
Yeah.
I'm part of the vaccination generation. Where I went to school, they just lined us up and gave it to us. There wasn't a lot of discussion about it.
That's all right.
Yeah, that was all right.
Yeah, but so if anybody in the community knows that people who are possibly unable to leave their home due to health reasons or other reasons, they can certainly call us and we can see if a nurse can come out and give a vaccination in their home. They would just call our health department office and talk with Dawn. The health department is continuing to offer travel testing. So if you're going somewhere warm and you don't have any symptoms, but you need a proof of a negative test result for COVID, we can do travel testing, and it's the rapid antigen testing. So we can do that at our
Travel
office.
testing.
Like if you're going to get on an airplane, sometimes they require that you have a negative test result before getting on the.
I guess they do, don't they?
They might. I wish I could travel somewhere warm, but I haven't needed that yet.
So that's available.
It is
That's
available.
great.
And then we also have some free saliva, the PCR take-home tests that are available at our office. And anybody can get those if they wanted to stop on in. We have them down in the bank lobby at the Northwest Bank building where that used to be located at 723.
Okay.
Yep. And then
Now, is that testing in Wells Fargo? Are you talking about Wells Fargo or?
Take them home.
Yeah, it's a take-home test where it's like the mail-in. I brought one for you so you can check it out too.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And then if you are having symptoms, the health department also offers symptom testing at our the 310 Second Avenue South location. That's our family planning clinic on Mondays and Fridays by appointment. So if you can't get into one of the other areas and you need to have, if you want to get tested for COVID and you are having symptoms, we can provide those services also.
You know, I was talking with a guy. I had breakfast with Keith and some of his friends this morning, and I was talking with a guy who got COVID, but it was just like a cold 4 or 5 days. So how do you know that you have COVID? Is there some? I knew when I had COVID. I had it pretty bad. I was in the hospital. So did my son. But how do you know if a person has COVID? If you should go to the hospital?
If you're wondering if you're not feeling well and you're having symptoms,
right, those sorts of things.
You can certainly get tested. The clinics here in town are offering testing. The health department's offering testing just to find out. And then sometimes it's just kind of staying home, resting, doing what your body is telling you to do is kind of the best things. But if you are ever experiencing trouble breathing or more intense symptoms, we do encourage you to go see your doctor.
That's what sent me to the hospital, the whole not being able to breathe thing.
That's a big deal.
That was kind of a bummer.
I'm glad you went there. That's
breathe.
good.
Yeah, that was a total bummer, I'll tell you. That not breathing thing, nah, it's not for me.
Yeah. And then some other things that the Webster County Health Department's doing is we do immunizations and pediatric COVID vaccines. So if you're wondering if your child's like current on their are up to date on their their immunizations, you can certainly call our office. We can check that.
I'm glad you brought that up. Is that really necessary? I've heard that children under 5 are going to start getting vaccines, shots.
For COVID?
Yeah.
As far as I know, the CDC, I only know right now it's 5 and older. I'm not sure what's coming in the future, but as we find out more information, we'll be sure to share it. But we can also check like different other immunizations like MMR, Hep A, Hep B.
And that is what, please?
Just childhood immunizations.
MMR?
Measles, mumps, and rubella.
All right. All right.
So, and then if anybody, they can always call Lexi at our office if they want to check on that. And her phone number is 515-269-3333.
So if I just wanted to get a COVID test, I haven't had one for a while, a couple months, maybe 3 months, I don't know. If I just wanted to get a COVID test, and how would I do it? Just go over to call the public health people, and I could go over that same day?
We have appointments that we have to make, so we'll see what we can. But if you're not having any symptoms, unless, if you're traveling somewhere and you need that guidance, otherwise you don't necessarily just need to get tested to see if you have it unless you're having symptoms. So.
Or you could take that box home. She's going to give you today. You can spit in the box, and then you can send it on a UPS, and they'll tell you.
No, I'm not about getting COVID tests for fun. I tell you.
Well, that is an option.
Right. The one that I brought you is a saliva test, so you can do it yourself, and that would not be a nasal swab.
They found out apparently when first couple times I got a test, it wasn't any big deal, but they found out you got to get up in there if you're taking. So the last COVID test I had, I thought that girl was going to put it up in my mid-brain or something. God almighty. But okay.
Were you giving her a bad time?
Not at all. Not at all. She just came along and
Keep going. She's got a lot of stuff to talk about.
All right. Yeah, go right ahead.
And then my program that I work with, it's called First 5 Healthy Mental Development Initiative. And we partner with medical clinics and doctors, and we encourage developmental screenings for children birth to 5 to see if there's any possible delays or any concerns. And then if there are, they can the medical provider can refer into First 5, and then we can connect them with local resources. So that's kind of a neat program that we have available, and it's free. It's just through a medical provider referral. So if any parent or caregiver or grandparent has any concerns about a younger age child, we just strongly encourage you to go talk with your medical provider doctor and talk with them about your concerns, and they'll kind of help you go from there.
Have young children? I mean, has there been a lot of COVID among young children?
I'm not exactly sure on the statistics right now for how it's broken down for age. I know there is the current COVID trends is through the Iowa Department of Public Health coronavirus website, and so they might have more information on that.
Meredith brought me a very nice little light here. You
I
can see it on
did.
StreamYard. It's a pretty good one here.
I did. It's a good flashlight.
Did you know you're on video, by the way, as well as?
I did not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got a picture of you.
Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks. Great.
Keith is doing a photo bomb in the background there.
Thanks, Keith.
Hi, guys.
And then February is the National Children's Dental Health Month, and so our I Smile program with Cindy Partlow would like us to know that it's promoting the benefits of good oral health this month. And with
Say that acronym again. Did you say?
I Smile.
I Smile.
Yeah.
Okay. I Smile and
Right.
good oral health. Well, that makes
Good
sense.
oral health, yes. And so we just encourage you to, with good oral health, have kids eat well, avoid pain or tooth loss, feel good about themselves, and keeping teeth healthy can be difficult, but parents can assist the kids by brushing their teeth, helping them with that twice a day, using fluoride toothpaste, drinking fluoridated tap water, limiting sugar in foods and drinks, and then making regular dental visits. And if they have any questions, they can always call Cindy Partlow at our Webster County Health Department. Our
Cindy
iSmile.
Partlow. She's the person. Okay.
She is, yeah. Or you can call the health department. We'll connect you right where you need to go.
Okay.
And then we also have WIC, which is the Women and Children Food Program. It's a supplemental nutrition program. And they help people with health education, breastfeeding support, access to health care. Eligible participants are individuals who are pregnant or postpartum women, infants and children up to the age of 5. To be eligible for WIC, you can be either income eligible or participate in another program such as Head Start, Medicaid, or SNAP. And they can always call our office, or they can call our WIC line directly, which is 515-574-3802. And our Webster County Health Department, we cover WIC services at Hamilton, Humboldt, Pocahontas, Webster, and Wright counties.
WIC services then, do you provide the people with food for their children? Is that it? Or
Yes, yeah, and nutrition, and they can go and see dentists, or they can have a
they
dental
get more
hygienist.
medical care?
It helps them, right? It's just a support
I'm a
thing.
supporter of that.
Mhm.
You know, I'm kind of a conservative guy, but I don't want to see sick kids or poorly nourished
Right.
kids around.
Well, just I think more eyes on them, it helps like that.
Yeah.
But we offer them, like the WIC offers like monthly money that they can use to purchase foods that qualify for the WIC program.
Okay.
And yeah, but they can come and talk. We have nurses on staff that are down there, and they check dental, and it's a great program.
Well, that's a good thing.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Yeah, you know,
And
that's
it's
great.
free. That's the
You
thing.
know.
All that stuff they're talking about today, most of it's free.
It is.
Yes.
Well, that's really good then. So you give them vouchers or money so they can go out and buy food, or?
Yeah, they qualify. They do some education, nutrition education. They can
Right.
either do it online or in person. And if they have any questions, they can always call our health department. We can talk with them about that too.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And then we also have our family planning clinic, and we've extended our days there. So we're going to be open at our family planning clinic on Wednesdays and Thursdays by appointment. And that's at our location, the 310 2nd Avenue South. In February, not only is it dental month, but it's also STD or STI, sexually transmitted diseases or sexually transmitted infection month. So the health department.
We have a month for that?
We do. Yeah. And so.
Well, let's party.
Well,
We're on 4th Street right now.
well, we'll give you free condoms. So come on down to the health department. We have those available. We've got you covered. So don't
I'm
worry
70
about
years old. Don't worry.
that. Well,
None of that is necessary, but thank you for the information.
Don't take
They're
it that
free.
direction. Let it go.
I'm not trying to. I just thought it was unusual that we had a month to vote.
Well,
with it.
there was an STD problem in Webster County, wasn't
yes. There.
There really was.
Right.
Any particular problem? Or
I don't work in that.
okay,
particular
and I'm
clinic,
not
but-
trying to take it a weird way. I usually would, but Keith's warning me over there not to do that.
But there
just
was. There
be
absolutely
safe.
was.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
is.
so
So
there's-
be safe out there, and that's what the free condoms are for. And
Oh, I'm past
and
that
they can
time.
help you.
in life.
we'll encourage
I'm-
your friends to be safe.
I will.
Okay.
They're my age. I don't think they're.
You don't have any friends.
So-
Now, there's another thing. I don't have any friends anyway.
And then we also have a certified home health agency where we have nursing staff and that can go into homes. They can help people with skilled assessment, medication setup, and
Nursing people, I'm not trying to interrupt you too much,
Mhm.
but You have the ability to talk pretty quickly.
I
and
do.
I want
I'm
to.
sorry.
No. Don't, please don't apologize. That's a great gift, but I want to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about.
Sure. It's home care aid is what we can provide. And so we have staff that can go into homes to help individuals if they're in our home health program, where we can go into their home so they don't have to get out. And maybe they're elderly and they have trouble with their medication, or they need their toenails trimmed. Those are services that we can offer.
Toenails trimmed, really?
Yep, we can. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we can actually come into the home to help people with that. We can also do administration of injectable medications, IV antibiotics, wound care, personal care services.
In the home.
Mhm.
By the way, when I did have COVID November last year, the public health people came over to my house a few times, probably more than once. I don't know. I had so many people coming over to help me. I mean, Fort Dodge is a great place. Webster County is a great place. But yeah, I had public health over and some people from the hospital, and boy, I really needed them then. I'll tell you.
Good.
That's I brought up toenail clipping. I didn't have that done, but I would have needed it then.
Mhm.
You know.
But there's
I was
just
pretty
services that are
sick.
available. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was able to stay in my home rather than that doggone. Well, I don't want to say doggone hospital necessarily, but who wants to be in the hospital all the time? You know, I don't want to be in.
Right.
So it's better for me to be at home, and I was unable to do it unless I had public health help.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad we were able to
They
help.
were there for you.
That's good.
They were.
That's
They were.
good.
We have a tremendous public health in Webster County.
I think
we
so.
have a heck of a group of girls that work over there and they do a great job.
And I'm not. I got food from somebody. It might have been public health. They just brought over a big box of food that that I could make myself, and I couldn't. I had to bring somebody else over the house to stand at my stove. But you know, it was gosh, I was taking all the help I could get back in those days.
And everything we've talked about today is funded through grants.
Through grants
Through
from
grants. It's
state,
yep,
private
federal,
grants,
state,
or
federal, state.
federal, state.
It's all grant money.
Does
everything.
the county kick in too?
No,
county doesn't.
No, it's all grant money. It's amazing.
State or federal?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that works for me.
There you go.
Again, you know, people cuss food stamps sometimes, but I'm not one. You know, the answer is: do you want to see sick and hungry kids, or do you want to kick in a little bit for food stamps,
kids.
or well-nourished kids, or kids that are seen at public health? And some of the mothers may be young and not know how to be a mother, and they want to be most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a nurse for that.
There is. We have programs for that called Family Foundations, where they can provide parenting education and go into the home and do activities and different educational things with the parents. And
That's great. I think
yeah.
that's just great, and I'm glad that I'm really glad that you're telling us all of these things today. So going back to a COVID shot again, or COVID test, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have symptoms, you don't need to really go get a COVID.
No, and if you're not experiencing symptoms, or if you don't need it for travel, you really don't have to just go in just to see if you have it, unless you have a concern for that. But if you have any questions at any time, you can always call the health department, and we can talk you through things.
Where's the health department, Mary?
723 First Avenue South, across
old-
from the law
the old bank
enforcement
building.
system. Yep.
Across from the law enforcement center, the big
Yeah.
building there.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, they're in the basement. No, 2 floors of that.
Right.
Second
Oh, you're not in the
floor-
Berg building anymore, the
No,
old school.
No, they're in the big. They have
Yeah.
the whole building pretty near now. Basement, second
now,
floor.
Across from law enforcement,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
The big,
The
whole
old
big building.
Northwest Bank.
Right,
building.
right, yeah, okay. Well, that's great.
That just
Right
will be the public health building.
Yeah.
Because you guys got the whole building just about.
Well, the Webster County
need it.
Veterans Affairs guys.
He's
are-
in there.
He's there
Dan
too.
is up
Dan's
there.
in there. Yep.
Yeah,
Dan's
I've been
there.
up to see him a few times.
That's what's nice. You know, they can, if the veteran goes in and Dan can't help him with something, he can send him over to these girls and they might be able to help him. It's all in one floor right there.
That's right.
Well, that's really good. You know, we have an elderly population,
Yeah.
you know, and maybe they're just living on a small pension or even Social Security. I mean, they can't afford a lot of things. But just before you go, and I really appreciate you coming in, and you're welcome back anytime, truly. But older people sometimes need help with medications. Does public health work with those folks or not?
For like administering medications.
Not
or-
administering, buying medications.
Yeah, just have them call the health department. We can talk them through and see what we have available.
Medicare doesn't, you know, maybe they can't afford all the different plans that go with Medicare. And I know they're pretty steep for me. I know.
Yeah.
Of course, I've been kind of a sicko in the last couple of years, but yeah, that's important to older people so they can get what's the medicine.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, they can always call the health department and we can connect them. And if we don't have the answers, we can connect them with a different agency that might be able to help them too.
Well, I'm so glad that you came today.
Thank
Is
you.
there anything else that you need to tell us, or?
She got through it all. That's great.
She did.
Yeah.
She did. By the way, I've recorded this. There'll be a podcast up on my Facebook page a little bit later on, and on the Facebook page, and certainly I'm on StreamYard. So she gave us a lot of information. She only had about 20 minutes to do it. So if you'd like to go take a listen again to what she had to say, those are the sources.
There's a lot of stuff available over there that people don't realize is available, that if people need something, call them. They can get it worked out.
No,
They really can. I mean, and there's just a lot of stuff that people don't know is available that they can get.
Well, and
they're
certainly
more than welcome to it.
we certainly need public health. That's for sure, and that's a great thing. You're a supporter of public health there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I really want to thank you, and Keith, good to see you. I'll see you Saturday where you can buy me breakfast.
No, I'm not going to do that.
You're not going to do it?
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to lose.
You're not going to lose. Keith and I had a couple other guys gamble for breakfast every Saturday. That's what we're
We
doing.
play the number game. No gamble involved. Just
No,
guess a number.
Just guess a number game. It's
Pretty simple.
Anyway, thank you, Meredith.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Yep.
This is AM 1400 KBFT.
The mayor of
Well, that's good.
Really?
Oh my God.
I need public health.
1400 KBFT.
Here's,
It's 4:31. The news is next.
Your news, your town.
here's some stuff from the treasurer that's coming up.
What's that?
Some stuff from the treasurer. Taxes are due. There's some programs available to pay and do stuff like that.
Okay.
So you
Thank
can,
you.
you can read that, maybe put some of it online. There's some stuff available for people who can't afford their taxes. They can, if they haven't got the right income, they can apply for some help. And it's all income based, or if they're disabled, they can get their taxes, no taxes due. I mean, if you're disabled, you can pay. You can pay your taxes like you do online. Just pay them online, or you can get them set up so they'll automatically withdraw from your checking account.
I didn't know it.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't either.
yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry, I
available.
chatted so
That's
much, I
available.
feel bad.
Who do you talk to, treasurer?
Treasurer, just get it set up. The treasurer, you owe $1,000, and they take it out once a month, out of your checking account. You don't
Well,
have to
that's the
worry
way
about
to do
it. Yeah, that's what I mean. If people don't know you can do that, but it is available now. So you can read all that. and talk
We'll
about
have to, we'll have to talk about that, because it always happens to me. Oh, hell, now I got a property tax
Your
bill.
stuff's more important than that. That's taxes.
I know, but it's coming up in March.